This idea of dead, rancid water is fascinating to me, and it actually makes a lot of sense. It's interesting to think that there's a vital fluid and then a corrupting fluid behind reality. Hello, today in my Gnostic Sects playlist, I'm going to talk about the Mandaeans. It's also sometimes known as Nasaraeanism or Sabaeanism. Those are kind of offshoots of the main branches. In Aramaic, manda means knowledge or salvific knowledge. You could also say gnosis. Sabaean has an Aramaic root related to those who have turned or converted. They were also called the Christians of St. John. They are Gnostic and dualist. They have Greek and Iranian and Jewish influences. The Mandaeans were and still are historically centered in southern Mesopotamia, specifically in lower Iraq, the Khuzestan province in southwestern Iran, and some other cities and regions. But this is a river-based religion. Their core ritual, mazbuta, which means baptism, must be performed in flowing living water, yardna. So they settled in the ancient world where rivers were constant and accessible. They survived where others didn't because of isolation, ritual discipline, and geographic advantage. But some were wiped out or assimilated into other religions. And there was also diaspora. They have been dispersed from their homeland, but still connected by identity, tradition, and memory. They have spread out to Canada, the USA, Australia, Sweden, Syria, Jordan. They even had their own language. Neo-Mandaic is the contemporary language spoken by some Mandaeans, while Classical Mandaic is the liturgical language that they use. It's an Eastern Aramaic language, beliefs. They kept a strict priestly hierarchy. For a lot of their existence, they transmitted their teachings orally, and then later in Mandaic. So this really focuses on baptism, the redemption of the soul. They did not perform a single baptism like Christianity. They viewed baptism as a repeated ritual act that brings the soul closer to salvation. John the Baptist is a key figure in Mandaeism, but they also revere Adam, Abel, Seth, Enosh, Noah, Shem, and Aram. They saw Adam as their founder. Yes, that Adam. So they claim to go all the way back, but John the Baptist was their last prophet. But here is perhaps the biggest difference between them and the other Gnostic sects. They considered Jesus to be a false prophet. In their theology, his teachings lead away from the knowledge and rituals that bring salvation. They also thought Abraham, Moses, and Muhammad were false prophets. They are symbolized by a darfash, a cross with cloth hanging off of it. They believed in marriage and procreation, which is a bit different than other Gnostic sects as well. They tried to lead an ethical and moral lifestyle. They placed a high priority on family life. They didn't practice celibacy. They weren't fasting. They weren't starving themselves. They weren't renouncing things, which is contrary to most Gnostic sects. They did abstain from strong drink and red meat, and they do agree with the other Gnostic sects that the world is a prison and is governed by planetary archons, but they don't view it as cruel. Ginza Rabba. This is their holy book, but there are others. It's a collection of hymns, prayers, cosmological texts, and moral teachings. Ginza Rabba means great treasury. It is split into two parts, the right Ginza and the left Ginza. The right is composed of 18 tractates, and this side deals with cosmology, the soul, the afterlife, and creation myths. The left has 3 tractates, and it's also called the Book of Adam sometimes. This focuses on ethical teachings, practical guidance, lamentations, sometimes more mystical things. Unlike most Christian and Jewish texts, this is more ritual oriented, but it preserves teachings from the 1st to the 3rd century CE through surviving manuscripts from the 16th to 18th centuries. It is basically their Bible, Cosmology. I think their cosmology is similar to the other Gnostic texts, but there are some major differences. I'm not going to butcher the names here. The language is very difficult. I will put them on the screen. You can sort it out if you really want to know. So, like the Manichaeans, they have a world of light and an evil world of darkness. They considered the body and all material worldly things to have come from the dark, while the soul, sometimes referred to as the mind, is a product of the light world. The forces of good are represented by these things, light and living water. The evil forces are represented by darkness and dead or rancid water. This idea of dead, rancid water is fascinating to me, and it actually makes a lot of sense. It's interesting to think that there's a vital fluid and then a corrupting fluid behind reality. You see this a lot in TV and movies, the black goo of the X-Files, but they thought the two liquids were mixed in all things in order to achieve balance. They also believed in an afterlife or heaven called the world of light. They have their monad figure, which basically means the great life or the great living God, but he has many other names. I think it has basically the same qualities as the other Gnostic sects. The emanations here are called Utra, which means divine messenger of the light. It also means wealth or angel or guardian. The Lord of Darkness is similar to the Prince of Darkness in Manichaeism. He is the substrate of material existence. The main defender of the dark world is a giant monster or dragon with the name It's like Leviathan or Tiamat in Babylonian mythology and Samael and other Gnostic worldviews. There's an evil female ruler, also inhabits the dark world, known as Ruha. She is queen of the dark world. She is associated with lust, uncleanliness, and other negative feminine qualities. Reading about her, she reminded me a lot of Lolth from the Forgotten Realms in D&D. If you know, you know. Anyway, is her son. She then commits incest with giving birth to the 7 planets and 12 zodiacs. But it seems to me that she is Ekamoth Sophia, the lower form. She eventually gets redemption and merges with her Syzygy, her ideal counterpart in the world of light. One thing to note, they also have the Hylic, Psychic, and Pneumatic schema, but theirs is a little bit different. And something I find interesting, something to note, is that Ruha literally means spirit. It refers to the female spirit of the material chaotic world opposed to the forces of light, which is odd because in the other sects, spirit is usually seen as a good thing. So I don't really know what's going on here with that. She has a brother, Gaff, and he is one of the giants in the world of darkness. There is a demiurge figure that creates the world, the mixture of light and darkness. He builds the world, but the materials are already contaminated by chaos, and he is the lowest of 3 demiurge-like figures. I will put the others on the screen here. So as you can see, it's similar but quite different, actually. There are definitely different things going on here. Legacy and persecution. Well, their legacy is that they are the last Gnostic sect. They still exist. They also are the preservation of an ancient Mesopotamian worldview. They have kept the language alive as well. In 2007, Islamic extremists subjected them to forced conversions, rape, and murder. They face extinction in Iraq. In Iran, Mandaeans don't face the same violence as in Iraq. However, they are restricted by the 1985 Gozanesh law. This makes access to jobs, education, and other opportunities dependent on loyalty to Islam. It's often used to discriminate against unrecognized religious and ethnic groups. Out of the 65,000 Mandaeans in Iraq in the early 1990s, only about 5,000 to 7,000 remain. In 2007, over 80% of Iraqi Mandaeans are now refugees in Syria and Jordan. And like I said at the beginning of this, they've also branched out to Canada, Australia, USA, Sweden, etc. So yes, they have survived, but barely, and they are still persecuted. Guess that's a common theme in all of these Gnostic sects. But this actually intrigued me a lot about them because they still exist. I actually want to look into them a bit more. If you have anything to say about them, you can post that below, but that's all I got for today. Take care, have a good day.